This is Bruce. Welcome to ConvoCourses. I'm doing something totally different this time. I'm live streaming on TikTok. I'm live streaming directly to my podcast, an audio version. We'll see how that goes. And of course, I'm doing my normal thing where I do a podcast once a week is what I try to do, shoot for on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Podbean, I'm on all of these platforms live. If you want to see what I'm seeing on my screen, I show a lot of things, but this is an audio mostly cast, so I'll be explaining what's on the screen. So that's what's kind of going on here. The focus of this talk is going to be a question I'm getting an awful lot. I get this question on YouTube. I get this question on Facebook. I get this question on all platforms, and that's how to go get into cybersecurity from the healthcare industry. So if you happen to be on Facebook, if you happen to be on TikTok, if you happen to be on YouTube, follow along with me. I'm on all these platforms, and let's get right into this. Before we start, I got to pay some bills. If you guys didn't know, I have a site called ConvoCourses.com. I got tons of free stuff. This is not just a money grab. I put the premium stuff out there because it just takes me way too much time to develop that stuff. And sometimes I do a lot of one-on-one sessions with people, and I have to, got to get paid for my time when it's doing very deep dives into people and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I've got tons and tons of free content on how to get into cybersecurity, how to do security compliance, specifically the NIST 800 series. That is my specialty. So if that's the kind of stuff you're interested in, go to ConvoCourses.com and sign up. It's for free. There's tons of free stuff that you can download there. I've got a free downloadable for your template if you want an ATS Style resume, which is the best type of resume format to use. It's been working for me. I have not been without a job. If I want a job, a high-paying job, a remote job, I can get all that stuff. I teach all that stuff. I teach you how to do that stuff. And a lot of that stuff is for free. So if you go to YouTube, type in Convo Courses, you can find me there. You can also just go straight to ConvoCourses.com, sign up, and I do free stuff. I give out coupons. I give tons of free stuff out. But if you want a premium, if you want deeper dives, if you want to have one-on-one conversations with me, then yeah, that's going to cost a little bit of money. But again, I'm not charging thousands of dollars like some of these guys are doing. Because I know that people are out here wanting to feed their families. So, okay, that being said, let's get into this. I want to talk to you guys about how to get into this field from healthcare industry. So let me just show you, read to you one of the comments that I got on YouTube. They said, I got two back-to-back comments about this. They said, looking to take this certification. The certification that they were looking to take was the HCISPP, and that certification is, let me see if I can find the full description of it. It's the Healthcare Information Security and Privacy Practitioner. They're looking to take that particular certification. So they said looking to take that certification. And they said, my only challenge is that I've been at the forefront of protecting medical records or information, even though I've a public health background. And any advice for that transition? Yes, I have some advice for that. That's what we're going to deep dive into. But right after that, on a separate video on YouTube, I got another question. And they said, I'm a registered nurse with 5 years of experience, wanted to break into cybersecurity, and I don't know where to start. Do you have any tips or videos to recommend on your page? So, okay, I'm going to start with the harder of the two, and it'll answer both questions. So the registered nurse with 5 years of experience. Yes, I can give you some guidance on this. And this goes for anybody who wants to break into this field. But specifically, we're focusing on healthcare industry, and the reason why we're focusing on that one is because there's certain industries that lend themselves to getting into cybersecurity easier, and this happens to be one of them, the healthcare industry. Other ones are if you happen to be doing physical security, if you happen to be doing law enforcement or any kind of law, if you happen to be doing any kind of stuff in a financial sector. Each one of those fields have these special venues that if you actually worked in those industries, you actually have an advantage over somebody like me who's a cybersecurity generalist or who worked in the federal space. You have some sort of advantage in that field. So I want to show you specifically how to go from healthcare, the healthcare industry as a whole, into cybersecurity or into information technology. Now, first of all, let's address the big picture on all of this. All right. So if you happen to be in the healthcare industry, we're not just talking about doctors, right? We're not just talking about nurses. Most of the people in the healthcare industry, they work in things like medical billing. You were talking about the staff that works in the hospital who's working with medical records. We're talking about the people who's not only protecting the medical records and the x-ray scans and stuff like that, but also storing those records. We're talking about the CNAs, the certified nurse practitioners. So these are difficult jobs and often thankless jobs that are hard on you physically, mentally, and emotionally. I know this because my ex-wife was a CNA. She was a certified nurse practitioner. And the stories of all the nurses who I met, the stories of nurses who she knows, all the people she knows, they have the same story. Their back is messed up because they have to pick up the patients. Their marriages are on the rocks, or they're on their second marriage and stuff like that. It's really hard on your lifestyle because it's just not everybody can do that. It's a thankless, hard job where you're seeing people die sometimes. So I understand why so many healthcare industry professionals are wanting to come into this field. And then on top of that, CNAs don't get paid a lot. They get paid maybe, if they're lucky, $20 an hour. And it really depends on the state. And so you're having to do all this hard, physically demanding, emotionally, mentally demanding work, but you're not getting paid for it. Now, nurses, they make pretty good money and stuff, but of course, doctors make great money. But a lot of the people who are approaching me are nurses because it's just a hard ass job. So that being said, where do you go from here? If you happen to be a nurse, you happen to be a CNA, you happen to be whatever in the healthcare industry, what are the advantages that you have to get into IT very quickly? I'm going to tell you. So some of the advantages is that the healthcare industry has something called HIPAA. HIPAA is a law that's designed to protect patient information. So that law was designed because our information, whenever we go to the hospital, was getting leaked and being used against you sometimes, right? So it's very important that information is protected when we're seen, because that's a lot of personally identifiable information, and you might have some sort of ailment that you don't want other people to know about because it could affect the rest of your life, and it shouldn't affect the rest of your life, right? So wherever ailment or whatever disease you might have should not affect your life, should not be anybody else's business but your own. So that's where HIPAA comes in. And what it's designed to do is protect our medical records. It's designed to encrypt the records when they're being stored, when they're being transmitted, and when they're being processed. And then it's designed to protect information as it's going from one department to another, or one hospital to another. That's what it's designed to do. Now, everybody who's touching the records, everybody who's touching your medical records has to have some formal education and formal training in that protection of that data. They have to have some sort of HIPAA protection. That is one of the advantages that you have if you happen to be a certified nurse practitioner, if you happen to be a nurse, if you happen to be a doctor, or whatever the case may be, medical billers. All these people have to know HIPAA. And here's the thing about HIPAA. It's actually security compliance. So if you know that, you actually know a little piece and a sliver of cybersecurity. not only that, another advantage that you have is if you are in the healthcare industry is that there's certain terminology that you know that I don't know. Like my specialty is a security compliance expert in mostly federal government. I can do state, I can do local, I can do that kind of stuff. I can do industries, but my specialty is in federal government. I don't know some of the terminology that you might know if you happen to be in the healthcare industry. And let me just show you what types of data these guys are protecting. So electronic health records, administrative data, claims data, patient disease registries, health surveys, clinical trial data. These are the types of information and records that these guys are actually protecting. And so this information here is what they have to know, and there's different things that they have to do in the protection of this type of information. Now, that being said, where do you start? If you happen to be a nurse, you have 5 years experience, how do you get from here to there? How do you get into this industry? And this portion of it goes to anybody who's trying to break into IT or information, cybersecurity. So what I'm doing here, can't see my screen. I'm just going to explain what I'm doing. I'm going to CompTIA.org. Now, this is just one place that you can go to kickstart your career in this. The very first thing you need to do is to learn the foundational information for information technology. Cybersecurity is based on the protection of critical assets, which are information technology. When I say information technology, if you hear me say information system, I'm talking about a computer. That's all I'm saying. That's all IT means is a computer. Now, there's different types of computers. Your mobile device is a computer. A server, the way that we're speaking to one another right now, the way that this is being broadcast is all being put on a server and being served out to the community. It's on a computer. If you go to a bank, when you log into your bank, it's using a computer. These are all information systems, information technology. What all these things have in common is that they have the same basic architecture. They have storage where it's kind of like long-term memory. Like whenever you access your information, like when you're thinking like, what did I do when I was 5? Or man, I remember that time, that traumatic experience when I got my ass kicked by this other guy. Like that's long-term memory. It's stored forever in your brain somewhere. Then you got short-term memory. On the computer has a short-term and a long-term memory. Short-term memory is called RAM, random access memory, also known as physical memory. And so that's what the computer is using to process information. So whenever information is coming to and from the brain of the computer, which we'll talk about in a second, it has to go through RAM. And it's kind of similar to the human brain, right? So human brain, well, and if you happen to be in the healthcare industry, you understand this. Like you have long-term memory, you have short-term memory. Short-term memory is like what you access right now. What am I going to eat right now? Oh, I want this sandwich. Let me put this, all that, you're accessing that information quickly. But then you have your long-term memory, your name, your location, your date of birth, your social security number. Those are all long-term memory stored in your mind somewhere. Then you have the actual brain of the computer, also known as the CPU, the central processing unit. Now, we're not going to break down what the central processing unit does or how it's broken into parts and how it works and all that stuff. I'm just telling you that all information systems, all computers have these 3 main components. And so you have to understand how those components work together and then how to protect them. Now, if you're interested in learning more of how these systems work together, which is what you'll have to do if you happen to be a nurse, if you happen to be in the medical industry, you have to learn the basics. And so the CompTIA.org site gives you a bunch of certifications that start you off with the basics. Now, if you're not computer savvy, if you know you're not technically inclined, if you know it takes you a little bit longer to learn, I would recommend going to CompTIA ITF, which is it's an introduction to the terms that go into this field. It's very very low level, and it's IT fundamental certification training. So it's a very, very first step. But if you happen to be real sharp on IT, if you happen to be a geek already, you can skip this one. More than likely, everything that you already know is going to be in this one. But if you're really starting from the very bottom, I would highly recommend you do this one. And the good news about this one is that it's cheap. It's a cheap certification, and it's fairly easy. It's about $130 to take the certification. And what you're gonna do is use the certification as a method of study. What I mean to say by that is that these certifications, the one thing that people do not talk about, is that these certifications are excellent in their curriculum, because they break down everything you're supposed to know. What you're going to do is you're going to take that curriculum and learn it. You're going to study it. You're going to buy books. You're going to buy video series. There's tons of videos you can watch on YouTube. There's tons of courses that you can buy on things like Udemy, which are fairly cheap to get into this field. Another one that you're going to take is the A+ certification. A+ certification was the very first certification that I took. It was difficult because I didn't understand I didn't know the terminology. I had to learn it from scratch. But it's broken into two parts. There's a hardware one and a software one, and it's a lot of information if you've never done this stuff before. But once you get that certification, you absolutely will understand different operating systems. You'll understand the difference between a Mac OS, a Chrome OS, an Android OS, a Microsoft, and a Linux OS. You'll understand there's differences between those two and how they process the information and how they handle all the processes of the hardware. And then it'll go into the basics of networking. It'll go into the basics of virtual and cloud computing, which is now a centerpiece of information technology. It'll go into the basics of security. Once you have this certification, and it's not easy, especially if you're coming straight off the streets and learning this one, it's a lot of information to take in. And the certification, when you take it, is $230 a piece. But before you take the test, of course, you're going to study, and get to know and understand how computers work. That's the name of the game, right? And the good news about this is, if you happen to be if you happen to be a nurse, I happen to know one of my good friends was a nurse. And I looked at her books. She was a LPN, I can't remember which one it was, but just to do that, and she was going for a bachelor's degree and an LPN, a licensed practitioner nurse, LPN. Anyway, I had been in IT for like 7 years, right? I'd read all kinds of books. I've had so many certifications in all different parts of information technology and cybersecurity. I looked at her books, and her books were way harder than what I had to do. Way harder, because the human body is way more complex than a computer. A computer is a highly simplified version of a human brain. It's extremely simplified version of the human brain. There's nothing that can compare to the human brain and the human body. It's a very complex system that's been developed over millions of years. So there's no comparison. Like, if you can be a nurse or a doctor or something like that, this is going to be easy for you, because it's not even close to being as hard as being an LPN and all the stuff that you have to learn. So that right there, like, you can do this. Now, if you're a CNA, CNAs don't have to go as deep into this, but they have to actually know quite a bit. Another one is if you're going from something like pharmaceuticals, or if you're going from, you guys have to really know quite a bit of information, like way more than your average information technology person. So this is going to be a lot of information, but it's not something that you can't do. So that being said, what you want to do, just to recap, you want to start from the bottom. You want to start off understanding information technology. That's the name of the game. So that's where you want to start. Once you get that A+ certification, and I would recommend the A+ certification specifically. That was the first one I took. It helped me. By the time I was done, I understood how computers worked. I understood how operating systems work, and I could troubleshoot them because I had a deep enough understanding to know the break fix. Like I saw patterns. Like if I knew, if I saw, say, the system doing a certain thing, I knew that okay, this is how I normally fix this issue. A+ gives you that level of competence. And then you take that test, pass that test, now you have a good, solid understanding. Now, if, let's say you already have a good, solid understanding of IT, that's cool. You can move on to this other certification. And this goes into the other question that I got from YouTube of the person. And let me just recap that question. I'm going to go back here to the question that he asked or she asked. And they said, I'm looking to take the certification called an HCISPP. And that HCISPP is a healthcare information security privacy practitioner. So this is a professional level cert. This is going to get you some money. All right. So they said, I'm looking to take the HCISPP. I'm trying not to say CISSP. That's why I'm kind of going through it slowly. But anyway, I said, looking to take the certification. My only challenge is that I've not been on the forefront of protecting medical records or information, even though I have a public health background. Any advice for the transition? So my advice for this person would be to, if they happen to be still in a hospital, if you happen to be still in the industry, if you happen to be a medical biller, if you happen to be, this person said they're not touching the information in the record, so they would not be a medical biller. So if they're not touching this, but they're on the forefront of public health information, I would get familiar with HIPAA information, and the A+ certification still applies to this particular situation as well. So I would definitely get more information into the nuts and bolts of how computers work. After I got that A+ certification, I would go straight forward to this certification right here. And here's why. This healthcare information security and privacy practitioner is something you're going to understand quickly if you are in the healthcare industry, because you know that you have to have some sort of compliance with the hospital or organization, the emergency room, or wherever you're working there. Information security manager. You're going to have to understand what it means to protect that information and how to manage risk. That's kind of what an information security manager does. Privacy. You need to understand, what is privacy? What are you protecting when you're protecting people's privacy? What is PII? Things like that. Compliance auditor. How do you, once you have the security items in place, how do you apply how do you know that stuff is applied effectively? How do you know the security controls are put in place effectively? And then you've got risk analysis. You've got medical record supervisor, IT manager. You're going to learn all these things. What you're going to do is look at the curriculum of this, study it, and then go ahead and take the test. That's what I've been doing throughout my whole career. If there was something I didn't understand, I'm doing it now with cloud. I don't have a cloud certification. I don't have cloud expertise. I have some knowledge of cloud, but I need to go deeper into it. So what I'm doing is I'm studying for an AWS certification. And then I'll take the certification. Once I study it, I'll set up a couple of virtual labs in my house, and then I'll go ahead and take the test once I'm ready. That's what you're going to have to do. That's the curriculum of this. And once you get this certification, once you get these under your belt and you're knowledgeable of this, and you tell them, hey, I've worked in a hospital, you know all the terminology, there's a very good chance you can get a entry-level position in the healthcare industry. A lot of times, the couple times I've done recently, actually, I did an interview with a hospital, and they were looking for somebody with some of my skill sets, and they were asking me questions that I didn't have. I just don't have a lot of experience with. They were saying, well, how would you protect these medical tools? Like they were saying, hey, we have these medical software, specialized medical tools. How would you protect this and that? I was like, well, I've never done that before. So you would even know what the tools were. Me, I don't even know what tools. I know that they have tools that have to use the network. They have tools that have to access a database. I know how to protect the database. I know how to protect the network. But these tools that they're mentioning, I don't know what if you're in the healthcare industry, you will actually know what these tools are. You will be like, oh yeah, I know what this tool is. It's this, that, and this, and here's how we can protect it. But you've got to get that IT background to understand the different parts and pieces that go into a computer, for example. Like we talked about the RAM, the storage, and the CPU. Like you have to understand how those things work together and how that stuff is managed by an operating system. That is what you learn with that A+ certification. And that's why I think it's very critical that you learn that kind of stuff. So that is how you break it. I'm going to open this up to different questions, and I see some questions on TikTok, and there's more questions on YouTube that I'm going to answer before we end this thing. That is what I would do. Just kind of recap. If you're going from the healthcare industry and you want to get into cybersecurity, the way to do it is, first of all, you have to learn the basics. Just like if you were in the healthcare industry, if you're a medical biller, if you're a CNA, if you're a nurse, you had to learn the basics of the human body. You had to learn the basics of your trade. You have to learn in IT, same thing. You have to learn the basics of how computers work before you can get into cybersecurity. And one of the good things that I didn't mention on this one, but on many of my other videos I mention it. One of the things that you can do if you happen to be working in a hospital, in a urgent care, emergency room, wherever the case may be, you might be able to laterally train. That means that you're a medical biller and you say you are in your company or there's a company that you know works in the same hospital as you. You can go and ask them and say, hey, I'm a medical biller, but I've got these skills. I've got an A+ certification that I just took and a Security Plus, whatever certifications you just took, right? And you can say, I'm trying to get into this field. Do you guys have any positions that are open? Because I wanna learn more. I want to do this job. Do you guys have any positions that are open? I'll take whatever you guys have, right? Or hey, can I shadow your IT guy? And actually, if you know the IT guy, don't even ask the managers. If you know that they're gonna say no, just go and directly ask the guy who's hooking up the network. Be like, hey man, I'm trying to learn this. Ask that nerd, that geek, that cybersecurity guy, that information technology guru, that help desk person, and ask them if you can learn from them. Stay extra hours, come on your day off. Like if you're serious about this here, then you're gonna do what it takes to get that experience, because experience equals money. If you're in the healthcare industry, what you want to do is learn the basics of IT. You can do that by going to CompTIA.org, looking at the curriculum of the actual certifications, taking that certification. Once you get that, you can level up to a professional level cert. Do the same thing. Learn the curriculum of that, and then go ahead and take that certification and then start to work on getting the experience as you're going. It's kind of like building the plane while you're flying it. That's what I would do. That's my advice if you're in the medical industry. I might do one for different other industries, like my industry in the federal government space. I might do another one for other one be like financial sector. I could speak on that one a little bit of how the best way to kind of transition from if you happen to be a bank teller and you're trying to go into cybersecurity or IT. They have the same kind of thing, but it's not HIPAA. It's Sarbanes-Oxley. They have their own standards and stuff. But anyway, that's how I would do it. And I'm going to open this thing up to questions. I've got some questions on TikTok. I got some questions on YouTube. And I appreciate everybody watching here. Let's just jump right into this. Before I start, you guys should know I have a podcast that I do weekly. It's on podbean.com. I'm trying to get this together. I had no idea. I've been putting these out for a while. I had no idea people are actually listening to it and downloading it. Apparently people are actually listening to this. I did not know. So people are downloading this thing, and I'm just now seeing that people are like certain episodes are really getting lots of downloads. So I probably should do more of this. But anyway, if you're interested in doing a podcast, if you want to like listen to this while you drive or whatever, go to ConvoCourses.podbean.com, and I have a link in the description below if you happen to be on YouTube. So you can click that, and currently live streaming on there right now. I'm going to see how that goes. I'm going to put out more of my stuff. I literally have like 10 other episodes that I need to upload that I just haven't done yet because my podcast was everywhere. But now I'm gonna really lean in and do a lot more of these podcasts. So follow me there on Podbean.com, ConvoCourses.podbean.com, and check out the audio version of this. Tons of downloadables. Another thing I should let you guys know is I have a new book out for Risk Management Framework. If you happen to be in Risk Management Framework, and just so you guys know what that is, what it is security compliance for the government. It pays very, very well. I've not been we're nowhere in a recession right now. I'm doing quite well. And in the last recession, it was the same thing because nobody wants to do this. Nobody really knows about this job. If you're interested in this, you can go to Audible. You can go to Amazon.com. You can check out my book and just type in RMF ISSO, RMF ISSO, RMF space ISSO, and you'll find 2 books by Bruce Brown. Those books, you can either listen to them, you can download it, or you can buy a print version of it. But it breaks down the foundations of what you need to know to get into risk management framework. Now, the great thing about this particular position is that it is hot. It's hot like fire, and we don't have a lot of people who are doing this work. They're always looking for people. They do look for experience, but there's certain caveats that might get you in the door faster. One of those, if you happen to be living in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, there's way more jobs. There's way more opportunities to get yourself in the door, because if you can get a clearance, if you're eligible, that means if you're a U.S. citizen or a naturalized citizen, you can get that certificate, that security clearance. You get a security clearance, it's easier to get a job doing this kind of work as a contractor. Another thing is if you happen to be a vet, they look very favorably on vets to get into this world of risk management framework as an information system security officer. And there's some other things too that can get you in the door quicker. So yeah, my book is out there. It's RMF ISSO. If you want to just support me, the book is out there. I appreciate all the people who are buying it. Haven't even been promoting it for the last month, and people are buying it. I'm blown away. I'm amazed, and I'm thankful. Thank you everybody who's been buying it. I don't know. I'm speechless. I did not know it was going to get the reception it has. Not like it's it's not like it's Stephen King or anything. It's not J.K. Rowling's, but I'm just trying to help you guys, help people out. So that's why I wrote it. So I've got that book out. It's on Audible. It's on Amazon. Check those out. We got the podcast out. We're gonna lean in harder on those. Let me answer some questions that I'm getting from TikTok. Thanks for watching, guys, on TikTok. I appreciate you. Don't feel sorry for me and feel like you have to hang around. Sometimes I see people with like one viewer, and I'm like, man, I need to stay. I don't want them to be alone, and I'll stay there. Just I want to leave, but I'm like, I gotta stay. Don't do that. I got people watching me on YouTube. I got people listening to me live, so it's cool. Any questions you have, though, feel free to ask me. It's a great time to ask me questions. Let me see. Somebody says, John Whale says, this is quite off topic, but how do I get past ATS systems? I have a certification, but can't get a job. So 9 times out of 10, if you have a certification, if you have experience, a lot of times it's people's resume. You have to put the right things on your resume. And if you happen to be listening to me, and anybody else out there who in the same situation, you have a certification, you have a little bit of experience, but you're just not getting traction, I'm going to tell you how to do it. Here's how you do it. Step 1, fix your resume. How do you fix your resume? How do you know what to say on your resume? I'm going to tell you. You go to LinkedIn and you look at other people who are in your industry. Look at the top people, because they're doing something right that is allowing the algorithm to put them on top. look at the top people, the top 10 people when you type in your job title. Let's say you're a cybersecurity analyst. Let's say you're a help desk professional. Whatever your field currently is, type that into LinkedIn. Whatever it is, right? I'm going to show you how to get to cybersecurity in a minute. But type that into whatever search. You can do this on any search engine, any kind of search job engine, by the way. Type that in. Look at the top people. Look at what they're putting on their resume. Copy what they're putting on their resume. Now, I'm not telling you to lie on your resume. I'm telling you to use the same wording that they use on their resume. Use the same wording and pay attention to things that they put on there that you didn't put on there. But you did. You're like, oh, they're putting log and analysis on there? Oh, but I don't have that on my resume. Put it on your resume. That's how you do it, right? Pablo Picasso says that great artists, good artists borrow, but great artists steal, right? In the context of what I'm telling you is that you got to get that information on your resume. Number one, that's the first thing you do. Number two is once you get your resume solid, make sure your resume is ATS format. If you don't know what that is, go to ConvoCourses.com, sign up for free, look for my course on cybersecurity IT marketing. You can see it for free. I have a free downloadable. If you go through the course, it's a free downloadable. It has an ATS style resume. Now, if you don't want to do that, just go to Google, type in ATS resume. You'll find tons of resumes there that look like, that have the format, that you can use their format. Basically, ATS, for those of you who don't know, means application tracking system. This is what most Fortune 500 companies use to track, manage the resumes and client and personnel who are in their system. So if a new job comes up, they can match the personnel in that database with the job instantly, right? And they can use things like artificial intelligence or machine learning to do that quicker and more efficiently. That's what ATS is. But they have to have your resume in a certain format in order to do that more effectively. So that format is all over the internet. It's not a secret. You can just go to Google and type in ATS resume. You'll find what it looks like. And essentially, it doesn't have a lot of pictures. It's not fancy. It's not like, these fancy resumes. You look at the resume like, wow, I wish I could. Man, I'm going to do that. ATS it's not fancy. It's very basic. It doesn't have it doesn't have tables. It doesn't have pictures. It doesn't have overlays. It doesn't look pretty. It's very, very basic and has very, very basic words. It has things like work experience, and then you put your work experience in there. And then the formatting is in a specific way. Like it has the company name, the location, and then it has the date, time frame that you worked in there, and it has it in a specific way. And it also uses a specific kind of font. It has a specific order. Skills. It has a skills section. It has you can put summary in there because it knows what the summary is anyway, once you get that resume in the ATS format, you can then upload it into dice.com. And this is the third step, by the way. Take your resume, your newly formatted resume, your clean resume with all the correct keywords for the position you want to get into, upload it to dice.com, upload it to LinkedIn, upload it to Indeed, upload it. I would suggest at least 10 places. Now, I have a whole course about this. Go to ConvoCourses.com. Go ahead and check it out. I have an entire course. You can actually check it out for free. All the formatting, everything for free. Check it out and look at all the little tips and tricks that I'm using there. Breaks it all down, tells you how to find keywords, walks you through it, all that kind of stuff. Take that resume, upload it everywhere. If you do that, I guarantee you will get more jobs than you know what to do with. There'll be jobs from all over the country. There'll be jobs you don't want to do. There'll be jobs that have a commute that's too far away. There'll be jobs that are remote. There'll be all kinds of jobs. So that is, I hope I answered your question, John. I know I was a bit winded, but there's a whole, I wanted to address every part of your question because I get that question an awful lot. Let me get some questions here going from the chat on YouTube. Okay, somebody said, I took a boot camp that was RMF focused, but not sure what to do next. Paris, if you're still watching me, after your boot camp, okay, let me see. You said, I don't live in the DC, Maryland area, but since I did RMF, should I look into doing PCI? So Paris, my next question to you is, what's your experience? Are you a help desk guy? Do you have any kind of technical experience? Have you worked in this field before? That would be my next question. And the reason why you formulate your answer, the reason why I ask you, and you said we're all listening, but I've watched all your videos. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. While you're formulating your question, like while you're answering my question to you, and my question to you is, what field are you in? Are you an IT person? Are you a cybersecurity person? Are you in a completely different field? That's my question to you. The reason why I ask that is because you got to start where you are. What I mean by that is, if you happen to be in the healthcare industry, like we talked about in the beginning of this, you just start there. That's the best place for you to start. Best place for you to start is there. Learning HIPAA, trying to get a lateral position, trying to get experience. If you happen to be a banker, you're a bank teller, and you're trying to get into IT, trying to get into this field, start there. Learn about Sarbanes-Oxley. Learn about PCI compliance. Try to get a lateral training in there. Get certifications that are relevant to your industry, because every industry has certain certifications that are more relevant to that industry. For healthcare, it's HIPAA compliance. For bankers in the financial sector, they have something called the CISA, which is highly regarded. You have the C-risk, which is highly regarded. You have PCI compliance in retail. So each industry has a different level. Okay, you said I'm a teacher. Perfect. Okay, I get a lot of people who are teachers trying to get into IT, and here's what my experience, what I would do if I was a teacher. If I was a teacher, first of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service, because that's a hard-ass job. I do not envy it, especially if you're K through 12. I've taught college. It's totally different experience. It was fun. I was teaching like a certification. I think it was Security Plus or something. I don't remember what it was. It was either Security. I taught Security Plus, and I taught CISSP, a portion of CISSP. These are IT certifications. It was totally different, because these are all like adults who are trying to get into an industry or trying to just get the certification or whatever. So they're very focused, and they're hanging on every word you say and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of like this. It felt just like this. All like-minded people who are serious, about paying bills. But whereas K through 12, you're dealing with a lot of societal issues. You're having to be a parent, a doctor. You're having to take on a lot of that. Unfortunately, and I don't know if this is just our country or Western civilization. I don't know what's going on, but there's just too much pressure being put on teachers. So I do not blame any teacher who's trying to make a transition. I don't blame you. And the good thing is, if you love to teach, look at me right now. I'm in IT. I'm teaching right now. You can still teach in information technology, right? You just got to get the knowledge. Okay, so if I was a teacher, if I was you, Paris, what I would do is I would start off, if you didn't already, I would start off with the basic knowledge you need to know. You need a solid foundation, okay? So CompTIA.org A+ certification. That's where I would start. There's a method behind my madness. There's a strategy that's here. The strategy is that once you learn this information, you have a foundational knowledge. And once you get the certification, you can now get your foot in the door at an entry-level position. So it's a twofold attack. That's why I recommend. There's some gurus out there, especially on TikTok, saying, "Oh, you just go for a CISSP. Don't do the A+ certification. Don't start off small. Start off big. Start off with CCNA." Those are really difficult certifications, and a lot of times you have to actually have experience in order to do them. Like they say you can't even take this test unless you have extra years of experience. We're not even allowing you to take this test unless somebody vouches for your 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of experience, right? You could take the test, and then some of them say, okay, you can take the test, but we're not going to give you certification until you have 2 years of experience or whatever, right? There's all these extra hoops you have to jump through. The reason why I would not recommend that is because a CompTIA A+ certification, once you get it, number one, it's validating that you have the knowledge to actually pass that test. You have gone through this information, and you need to actually know it. Don't just do what's called a brain dump. A brain dump is basically all the answers to the questions is on the internet, right? It's an open secret. All the questions to a lot of these tests are on the internet. You can literally download it, memorize it, go take the test, and pass it tomorrow. I don't suggest you do that because you have to learn this stuff. What I'm telling you to do is go through the curriculum of what's here. Look at the curriculum of what they're teaching and learn it. You need to have a basic understanding of how computers work. How does the CPU talk to the RAM, talk to the storage? How do those work? You need to understand how they work. And what you can do is set up a lab in your house. You're watching me right now from your phone, from your computer. You can use literally what you have right now to begin to learn this stuff. You can configure your own network. You can configure your own firewall. You can take a look at the information that's coming in and out of your network. You can take a look at the firewall that's already on your computer and start to understand it. The A+ is a really great place to start to understand that. And there's virtual computers. There's virtual systems that you can do. There's something called VMware. VMware allows you to set up servers, set up different operating systems on your computer and start to learn. What I'm trying to tell you is that you need to learn to not only understand operating systems and computers and how they work, but also I would recommend that you have set up a lab and start to actually use it. So you have a working, practical understanding of how it all works together, because those are the best security guys. Now, once you have a working understanding of this, you go take the test. You fail it, take it again. You fail it, take it again. Don't give up. You only fail if you quit. Take the certification and get it. Now what you can do is you can apply for a job with no experience. Let me show you how. So what you can do is you can go to a site called, let me see. You can go to any site, really. You can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Indeed, but I'm going to go to Indeed.com, and you can follow along with me. Indeed.com. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for entry-level positions that only require a high school diploma, only require a security and A+ certification, things like that. That's what we're looking for. So you can find these all over the country, and some of them are actually remote. You can find these jobs. There's not a lot of them, but they pop up every now and then. So now I'm on Indeed.com, and all I'm typing in is, I'm just going to type in entry-level A+. A+ certification is what you already have. Let's say you already have it. You did 6 months of training, and now you're doing that. Okay. We can do remotely or whatever state you're in. I would recommend you just type in your state or whatever, or just leave it blank. And I just hit search, and now I'm looking up a bunch of jobs. Now, most of these entry-level positions, they're not going to pay well. Like this first one that pops up is called an apprentice service engineer, and it's $38,000 a year. That's not, a lot of people when they come in this field, they're like, oh, I want to make six figures. I want to make no. You got to start from the bottom. But what you got to understand is the entry-level positions, all the experience that you're gaining, is money. Every time you get more experience, you're getting more. That's more money. That's how I see it. And that's in any time I've done. Look, they got entry-level Java developers, entry-level data and analysts, entry-level, and a lot of these don't require experience. They're not going to pay a lot in the beginning, but you're not doing this to get paid a lot immediately. Like, if you happen to find a job that pays a lot immediately, great. Another thing that you can do, I'm going to give you several options. You don't have to just take the A+ certification. There's another one that's pretty hot, which is the Google IT Support Professional Certification. This one is from Google, and from a lot of people who follow me there, who are said that they have it and they're actually getting jobs, making $40,000 a year, making $50,000 a year, whatever. This is another great way to break into this, because this entry level certification is getting a lot of traction. So here it is right here. I'm on grow.google /certification if you want to follow along, or just go to Google and type in Google IT support and you'll see the certification. Let me see. Qualify for in-demand jobs in IT, jobs in information specialist, jobs as a technical support specialist, IT technician, IT assistant. And then they have different entry-level introductories into different aspects of certification. So they don't just have a basic IT support. They have automation with Python certifications. They have all kinds of certifications. These are entry-level positions, certifications that once you get it, you put it on your resume, you find an entry-level position. Now your foot's in the door. Now you're getting experience as a teacher. Now your profession was a teacher, and now you've got your foot in the door with no experience, and now you're going to get that experience. Once you get 6 months of experience, put that on your resume, level up. Now you have the option of either staying with that company or corporation or organization for some time, or leveling up by looking for another job and say, hey, I have 6 months of experience. That's how this works. Another thing you can do as a teacher, what I would consider if I was a teacher, is I would seriously consider doing a lateral change, or doing IT while I'm a teacher. Like if your staff, if you're in the district and they are having some issues with the network and they need help backing up computers, right? The kids have screwed up the computers and there's a virus. Go down there, volunteer your time, or ask the management of the faculty. I don't know what they're called, the administrators. Go to them and say, look, I'm trying to learn IT. I'm trying to get into IT. Do you guys have any positions for information technology? You'd be surprised how many organizations are starving for information technology people who will welcome your work doing information technology. When I was in the military, I was a security guard. We were called security forces, and my specialty was weapons. Like I know how to take apart, put together, shoot several different weapons. Like I don't know what that gives me in the I don't, when you get out of the military, like how many people need a guy who can shoot a grenade launcher. Like I know how to shoot a grenade launcher. Like what good is that going to do? I could be in a Michael Bay film. You know what I mean? Like what? I don't know. I could probably be a police officer, real talk. But I didn't want to do that when I got out of the military. I wanted to be information technology. Anyway, so I was in the Air Force, and I asked my supervisor. I said, "Hey, man, like sir." I didn't say man. I said, "Sir, I'm really trying to cross train." That's what we called it, into IT or something else. I'm just thinking. And he said, "No, you can't do that." I said, "Really?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Because our field, security forces, needs you. Like they really need people more than any other field, right?" And I said, "Really?" I said, "Damn." And I said, let me just check, just in case this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? So I went to it was called support. Oh man, I can't remember the names, man. It's been a while. Anyway, I went to an organization on base whose responsibility it was to manage our jobs. So I go there to the support office and I say, hey, I'm in security forces. I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm trying to transition into something else. Like, is there a way I can do that? And he said, yes. And I said, really? I said, okay, I'm trying to get into computers. Is there a computer job? And he said, yeah. And he brought out this book with all these computer jobs, there was all sorts of jobs. There was all kinds of electricians. I said, I thought I was in a field my supervisor told me that I'm in a field where they don't allow us to transition. He says, I see what he's saying, but actually there's some other fields that are hurting even more than security forces. I was like, really? He said, yeah, computer operator is really hurting bad. They're really looking for people. And he said, hey, you can apply for this job. Apply for this job, this job, and this job. And I did. I applied for all these different jobs. And long story short, I got the job. What I'm trying to tell you is that you got to ask. Like, had I never asked, I'd probably still be in the military as a security forces person or something. You got to ask. Like, if whatever organization you're in, if you want to make a lateral change, if you want to make a lateral move, go to the managers, go to the upper level management, go to their webpage, look at their career section, try to apply to the jobs internally to do IT. And if you can actually do a lateral change, like, that helps a lot. And sometimes the organization will allow you to do on the job training and then pay for you to get a certification and a degree in that field. And now you're getting experience. They're paying you. And when you get out, if you ever choose to move, you have a certification and a degree. That's what I did in the military. I did a lateral change from a security forces member who all we did was law enforcement, UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, put weapons together, protect aircraft. That's what I did. Make traffic stops, air-based ground defense. That's what I did. I worked with the Army, the Marines. I was a grunt. I went from that to being a computer operator. And what did I do? I asked them, the organization. I said, hey, I'm trying to make a lateral move. They want to keep people. They're not trying to lose good people who are workers. So if they can keep you, if there's a way that they can keep you, they will. And that goes for the district. Like, if you happen to be as a teacher, yeah, if they can teach you, they will. So yeah, just consider asking the organization if you can make a lateral move or if you can begin to train. And hell, don't even ask them. Just go find the IT guy and ask them, hey, can I shadow you? Can you teach me? And you'd be surprised how many geeks are okay with you shadowing them and you teaching them and stuff. Basic things. All right. So that's that question. I hope that answered your question, Paris. There is a way out. I mean, if I can do it, man, you can do it. Let me see. Poku says, Bruce, I'm currently working in the commercial real estate industry but looking to get into cybersecurity with public health background. Okay, I just read your question earlier. I actually read your question earlier. I went very deep into this actual first 20 minutes of this video was me talking about this, but I can probably recap it. He said, what will be the starting point for me? Okay, let me recap what I said in the beginning of this video. So what I said was I focused on your question. So I saw your question, I read it, and you said you haven't done the security compliance, you haven't touched the actual health records, but you're trying to break into this. Where do you start? And what I said was you have to start. I made a few suggestions, but what I would do is I would go ahead and learn the basics of information technology. Number one, learn the basics of information technology. What you can do is go for a certification like this, the Google IT certificates. This is basic information, basic knowledge of how a computer works. It's going to teach you how a CPU works with the RAM, random access memory, also known as physical memory, works with storage, and how you protect these things, how the data is encrypted, if it needs to be, when it needs to be encrypted. It's going to tell you the difference between a client and a server, client-server model. It's going to teach you business needs for different aspects of mobile devices, servers, and clients. It's going to teach you all this terminology I'm saying. All of that stuff and how it works together and why. Different types of programming languages. And by the way, most of this stuff doesn't go deep into programming. Most of it, programming is a whole different branch. It might teach you some scripting. It might teach you some command line. But most of this stuff, like, you can learn it. Especially if you're in the healthcare industry, you can learn this kind of stuff. Real estate's way harder, in my opinion. Commercial real estate is way harder than it's on an equal par with IT. IT gets complicated. I mean, unless you get into specializations and architecture and programming, then that's when it gets crazy hard. But the basics of IT is on the same level as like what you learn from real estate. Real estate's actually pretty hard. It's a lot of stuff to understand, a lot of laws and things you have to know and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you can learn that, you can definitely learn IT. But I would start off with entry level. So entry level stuff is where you want to start, whatever industry you're in. Just like in real estate, like, you got to understand the basics of it first, right? Before you go into complex things like commercial real estate, you had to understand basic real estate. So it's the same thing with IT. Start off with a Google certification. Another one I recommended was CompTIA.org. CompTIA A+ is the first certification that I got. The certifications, their role in IT is to validate your experience and validate your knowledge of it. But what you can use it for is to actually learn, because the curriculum breakdown of these things is excellent, because they're telling you all the common body of knowledge that you need to know. So you want to start off at that foundation. Once you know that stuff, take the test, pass it. Then what you want to do, what I would do if I was in your shoes, if I was in a hospital, if I was in a urgent care or primary care, or wherever you happen to be working in, I would try to make a lateral move within my organization, because you have a special career path. You are in the healthcare industry. Healthcare industry lends itself to having a bunch of specializations. One of those is protection of medical records. You know a lot of technical jargon that I don't know. Having done this for 20 years, there's certain things that I don't know about HIPAA, that I don't know about, that you're going to know because you've been doing that field for so long. You're going to know the terminology. I'm not going to know it. And I know how tough healthcare is. My ex-wife was in the healthcare industry. Part of the reason we got divorced was because she was doing healthcare, and it just was too taxing on our relationship. And then some of my friends, same thing. Their relationship is on the rocks. They're having not suggesting that yours is, but it's just very taxing on your life. She's a CNA. Nurses have the same issue. Most of the nurses I know, divorced, having issues with family life because it's just too taxing on you mentally, physically, and everything. And then even if their family's okay, even if they're still married, whatever, one of the other problems is physically it's taxing on you. So I know it's a really hard field, but the great news is if you're trying to get into IT, you're in a specialized position because you have an idea of HIPAA. Now, if you don't have an idea of HIPAA, you need to learn it. And you're in a position where you can learn it easily. You've got a bunch of resources. I'm sure they have all kinds of internal training that you can learn. And you know what you could do? What I would do is I would talk to the HIPAA people. I would go to talk to those people that you don't normally want to talk to because you have to do that stupid training every year or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. Go to those people and be like, hey, I want to learn more about HIPAA. They're going to be like, really? You want to learn more about HIPAA? Because you're trying to be a HIPAA compliance person. Those guys get paid a lot of money. And it's adjacent to cybersecurity, because all this stuff that you're seeing on my screen, compliance officer, information security manager, privacy officer, this is all stuff I have to do. This is all within my profession. Risk, 90% of this stuff is stuff I do, with the exception of medical record supervisor and health information manager. Those are the only two things I see on this list that I don't do. So compliance is what you want to get in if you're doing this. And that's what I would do. I would try to make a lateral move. I would talk to the HIPAA compliance people within that industry. I would try to work. If you happen to be working at a corporation organization who's already in the healthcare industry, ask them. Say, listen, I'm trying to learn more about information technology. I'm trying to learn more about HIPAA compliance. I'm trying to be a compliance officer. Is there any lateral? Do you guys have any kind of on-the-job training? You got to ask. That's how I got into this. I asked, and they allowed me to do a lateral change within my organization. Typically, they're trying to keep people. So that's what I would do. Let me answer some more questions. I'm getting a bunch of questions here on TikTok. I'm not ignoring you guys. I've got just let me explain my situation here. I've got YouTube here with a bunch of people watching me. I've got a live on Podbean. So if you guys didn't know, this is a podcast. I do this weekly. If you want to follow me, check me out on YouTube. Type in ConvoCourses.com. If you happen to be on YouTube and you want to go find me on TikTok and you're addicted to TikTok like a lot of people are, go to TikTok, type in ConvoCourses. You can see me there. And I have a podcast, link in description below if you happen to be on YouTube. Go join me there. I'm actually broadcasting this live. I don't know how this is going to go. This is the first time I've done this. So I'm all over the place. And if you didn't know, I also have a book out. Go to Amazon.com. Check out my new audiobook. I have an audiobook out there if you want to check that one out. Thank you. Shout out to all the people who've already bought it. A lot of people are purchasing it. I'm blown away. Thank you so much for all your support. Anyway, it's called the NIST 800 Control Family. It breaks down the risk management framework process from the perspective of an information system security officer. I'm writing another book that's going to be the third book in this series that's talking about security control assessors. And I'm writing another couple books about what I'm talking about now. Most of my questions are about how to get in this field, so I figured I should write a book about that too. Dump all my knowledge of that online so that people can actually consume it. All right, let me see if I have any other questions here. I said I was going to answer some questions on TikTok. Okay, what's better? This is another question on TikTok. What's better, a government-backed defense company or a popular private sector company for entry level? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. What's better? So what they're asking is, they're asking what's better. The private sector. Private sector means like companies like Google, Microsoft. I don't know. Just think of any company, Target, Walmart, working as an IT person there. Home Depot or Costco or something. Those are all private organizations. Government-backed defense contracts are like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Ball Aerospace. Excuse me. I've worked with both of these types of industries. I was working with Northrop Grumman for some time, working as a contractor. I've done that for many, many years. And recently, I worked for a private organization. So I know the difference between both of these. And he's asking, what is best for entry level? And I would say it depends on where you're at. And this is not a cop-out. Let me explain. So if you happen to be in certain areas of the country, if you happen to already have a background in the Department of Defense, then probably your best bet is to be a contractor. What I mean is certain areas of the United States lend themselves to working as a contractor for the government. The Maryland, D.C., Virginia area has so many companies that work directly for the federal government that it's probably better to start there. And if you happen to be a veteran, if you ever worked in the United States government as a military person or a civilian, then probably it's going to be way easier because you're going to have clearances, you're going to have all this kind of stuff already. It's easier for you to do an entry level into contracting if you happen to have a background as a veteran. If you're a veteran, military, ex-military, yeah, it's better to go straight into contracting. I mean, it'll be way easier, and you're going to get paid way faster at a higher rate. If you don't have any of that, if you're not in Denver, if you're not in the DC, the DC, Virginia, or Maryland area, if you don't have a background, and if you're not a veteran, if you're not, then it depends on where you're at. Depends on what industry you're already in. It depends on what kind of background you already have. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the private sector for you. So it depends on where you're at. Overall, having done both, which one is better? It really depends on which one you prefer. For me, the private sector was really fun. The private sector, there's pros and cons to each. I can't really say that one is better than the other. Entry level really depends on where you're starting from, but which one is better, hands down, I'd say they both have pros and cons, and I'm going to go through a couple of them. So pros and cons of working for the federal government is that the contracts are fleeting. The contracts come and go. That's a negative for me. The positive thing is that there's so many jobs, and they typically pay pretty good, but they're fleeting. They might not last very long. Positive about the private sector is really good in that the private sector it pays really well, but the problem is that they in my opinion, they kind of overwork you. Like they're putting 15 different hats on you and stuff, and that's something that we didn't really have as bad when I was working as a contractor working with the government. They don't try to put too many hats on you. I mean, you do have multiple hats, but it's not as bad as private sector. But the great thing about the private sector is that they train you way more, and that's just been my experience. Maybe experiences may vary, but that's been my experience with it, and so. Very, very interesting. Had a great time working with both. Let me see. More questions. Let me see here. I've got more questions here on TikTok. Trying to answer some of those. Okay. Got some questions here on YouTube. Whoa, got a lot of stuff on YouTube. Okay, thank you guys for the engagement. Thanks for all the questions. I really appreciate it. Let me see. Bruce, is operating access control systems and setting up AV systems in conference rooms be considered someone with some IT experience? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely IT experience. So are you saying that you do that? Or somebody who's there does that, and you want to shadow that person? Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're setting up AV systems, you have to know a little bit of networking. Because a lot of that stuff it's tied into the network. That means you got to know IP addresses. You got to know whether the gateway IP is. You got to know the differences probably between IPv6 and IPv4. You got to know what an internal IP address is versus an external IP address. You got to know some networking stuff, and then you got to know, okay, what is this a server? How do I attach to the server? Because a lot of AV systems, are you talking about audio-visual systems, or are you talking about antivirus systems? Setting up AV systems in conference, you must be talking about audio-visual. Yeah, that's definitely IT, man. That's IT. Yes, I do that, Bruce. Man, listen, you better have that on your resume. You just have to know how to articulate it on your resume. That's all. Because that means that you have to know some networking stuff. You got to know some server stuff, client server model. You got to know different types of cables. Like you have to know probably Cat 6, Cat 5. You got to know all the types of cables. All that stuff's important. You got to put it on your resume. Yeah, that's definitely IT. That's definitely IT. What you probably want to do, Paku, is I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. What you want to do is look up other people who are in your industry to try to get an idea of how you can articulate this better, like how you can put more IT stuff on your resume. Look at other people's resume to get an idea of how they word it to get yourself into IT position. Probably the issue, I think the issue with some of the cable guys I meet is similar to what you're having. Because cable guys, the guys who hook up your cable in your house, and sometimes they'll hook up your internet too, those guys actually have a lot of IT experience, but they don't know it. So they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what to put on their resume. So I did this video a while back where I talked about, like, hey, if you happen to be a cable technician, put this in your resume. And it got pretty popular. And they were like, wow, thanks. I didn't know that. They're network guys. And they didn't know, like, that, yeah, if you put this stuff on your, and then I told them, hey, if you get this CCNA, this certification here, if you get this cert, this cert, and this cert, guess what? You're now a network engineer. So you just have to know what to put on your resume. You said access control systems. Yeah. So access control systems is a big part of information technology and a big part of cybersecurity. Yeah, you need to put that on your resume. Access control is one of the main parts of cybersecurity. It's one of the main things you do in cybersecurity. Access control. Access control is mentioned in the NIST 800. Access control is mentioned in ISO 27001, which is an international standard for security framework. It's mentioned in PCI compliance. It's mentioned in yeah, you got to put that on your resume, man. So, yeah, I think you're already in IT. You just have to know what to put on your resume. Okay, let me see. I've got some other questions here. Would you have advice? Would you advise one to pursue a 6-month boot camp through a university? I'm looking at a University of Texas, Arlington. Their program seems to be very in depth. Just in case anyone is suggesting is thinking about it. Yeah, this is if you have the money, if you have the opportunity to do a boot camp, and this is something that can benefit you. I've taken some boot camps before. They're torture. Like, I don't typically like boot camps. They're difficult. It's a lot. It's like a 3-day boot camp. If you guys didn't know, it's like a 3-day focus on one thing. Like, if you're taking a certification, if you're taking a certification on Security Plus, it'll be 3 days of doing every day for 6 hours a day, doing nothing but going through all the material of a Security Plus. And by the end of it, you have gone through all the material, but they've crammed it into your head in 3 days, which is a lot. So I would yeah, sure. If you have the opportunity to do a boot camp, I would totally do it. And what you want to do is, in conjunction with that, study on your own time. Do the boot camp. Yes, take all the resources. A lot of times they'll have these great resources and books and stuff that they'll give to you. But then what you also want to do is study on your own. Whoa, I got a question from Podbean? Live podcast? Holy crap, that's crazy. It says, how are you? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. Thank you for joining the live. I appreciate you. And just so you guys know, I've got a live on Podbean, an audio live. I got a live on YouTube and a live on TikTok. You can and actually one on Facebook as well. I haven't checked on my messages from there. Let me see if there's any messages from there. I don't see any. But yeah, so any of these platforms you want to join me, feel free. Ask questions regarding cybersecurity. I'm all ears. And let's get back into this. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. We're an hour and 20 minutes into this. I'm going to be ending this pretty soon, but I'm going to answer a couple more questions. Let me see. Somebody said, Bruce, previously on your video, you talked about the yearly compliance life cycle. What do you what do you do when assessors go beyond the scope of the assessment? Oh, okay. This is a good question. What do you do when assessors go beyond the scope of the assessment? Okay, so this really depends on what role you're in. So what Majed is talking about is the risk man. How do I explain this to a wider audience? What Majed is talking about is security compliance. So security compliance typically has the process of security compliance is this. I'll explain it very quickly, high level. The organization has a certain amount of tasks they have to do in steps, and that by the end of the steps, your whole organization is more secure. You've reduced the risks to your organization from being hacked, for example. In that process, the process of, okay, let's identify all our most important pieces. Let's identify. Now that we've identified the most important parts of our system and the most important parts of our information, how can we protect this? What level of protection do we need? Do we have classified information? Do we have publicly available information? How do we protect this information? Okay, now that we know how to protect this information, what security controls do we need? All right, now that we know what security controls we need, now let's apply those security controls. And then the next step is, okay, now that we've applied those security controls, let's assess and make sure that those controls are applied effectively. That is security compliance in a nutshell. That's what you see on PCI compliance, on HIPAA compliance, on NIST 800 compliance, which is a federal U.S. standard. That's what you see on international standards. All of them have the same thing, what I just said. So what Majed is saying is, when assessors are people who come in and say, okay, let me inspect and let me audit your system to make sure you have security compliance put in place, security controls put in place. So sometimes what they'll do is they overstep their bounds. That means there's a certain scope that they're supposed to use. They're not, if they have 15 control IPs that they're supposed to scan, but they scan your entire network of 100 systems, that is beyond the scope of what they were supposed to do. Now, in this case, what I would do, it depends on what position you're in, because if you're a manager, obviously you have way more say-so than a security officer who's on the ground versus somebody who's a C-level exec. If I was an information system security officer, what I would do is I would address it. The assessment is happening. The person goes way beyond their scope. And what I would do is I'd say, listen, here's the scope. You were supposed to only look at these 15 IPs. You just scanned our entire network. I would address in a very respectful way that they have gone beyond the scope of the assessment, and I would bring that up to my manager. And if I was the manager, I would bring that up to the C-level exec, and I would point out specific instances where they have overstepped their bounds. Because whenever you do as an assessor, I can tell you this. Whenever you conduct an assessment, you cannot go outside the scope of what you agreed upon. That's a breach of contract, it's a breach of your agreement. And actually, you can get in trouble for that. So that's actually pretty serious. If I tell, as an assessor, if I go in and I'm supposed to scan 9 systems, but I scan 100 systems, those other 100 systems might be on a mission launching something into space. And I just did a scan that can interrupt that process. Going outside your scope is a serious issue. So what I would do is I would address it, and I'd have specific instances of where they overstep their bounds. I would look at the original agreement. Normally, whenever you do an assessment, the first thing you have to do is what's called a security assessment plan. A security assessment plan. And that breaks down the scope. The security assessment plan will include all the people who are going to be a part of the scan, all the main players, all the stakeholders, all the points of contact you're going to need to conduct the whole assessment. It's going to mention all the pieces that you're going to scan. It's going to have, if there's 100 systems, it'll have each IP listed there. It'll have all the IPs that you're going to scan and when. It'll tell you when you're going to scan those. And if you're going to do interviews, it'll say, we're going to interview at this time. We're going to interview these people. And if there's anything else you need, any kind of documentation, it'll list those things. A security assessment plan, and there's different names for it. Assessment plan, it's a SAP, security assessment plan. There's different names for it. I would go back to that security assessment plan and say, hey, per the original security assessment plan, these guys, they were only supposed to scan these 20 systems. They scanned 30 other systems. And it's looking like, it doesn't look like we're good here. However, they weren't supposed to scan those systems. They were only supposed to scan these systems. That's what I would do if they were going outside the scope of what they're supposed to do. That's actually a serious issue, and it could cause problems for the whole organization, especially if they're doing it on a regular basis. Okay, let me see. I've got a lot of questions, man. Thank you everybody who purchased my book. Thank you everybody who's watching me on TikTok. I really appreciate it. I'm about to end this live. Thank you people for who are listening to me live on podcasts. That's crazy. That is crazy. Wow, I'm blown away by that. And then thank you for everybody, of course, on YouTube, the whole community. This is a community that has taught me quite a bit. I really appreciate it. I will be doing this again within the week. By next week, expect another one like this. This is the first time I've done it this broadly on different platforms. So we'll see how this goes. Appreciate everyone. I will see you guys on the next one.